Hey guys, Sarek here, and today I'm bringing you my Attignista deck. This deck just got reprinted pretty much entirely in the Megatins, and has had some recent support in Lightning Overdrive, so it's much cheaper now, except for everyone's favourite budget bugbear, accesscode talker. So let's get into the deck. We have 3 copies of Achichi Attignista. This is our searcher. All the Attignistas have a summon effect, and then they have another effect. This search is a level 4 or lower Attignista monster. And then it also has a very situational graveyard effect where it can banish itself when a Cyberse monster battles and you destroy that monster that you control. So very situational, unlikely to come up. Then we have 3 copies of Picari Attignista. This searches our spells and traps, and when it's normal or special summoned, and then we can also target an Attignista monster we control, and its level becomes 4 until the end of the turn, so it can help us make our Light Dragon Xyz. We then have 2 copies of Doyon Attignista. Doyon allows us to recycle Attignistas from our graveyard, and then if it goes to the graveyard as a link material, we can then recycle AI spells and traps from our graveyard, although we're not playing any AI traps in this deck. 1 Hiari. Hiari can special summon itself if you control an Attignista monster. You can then also tribute one other Cyberse monster and search a level 5 or higher Attignista monster, and its level will become 4. And then it has one effect that is completely irrelevant to us because we're not playing the ritual. 1 copy of Bururu. This is the 1 card in the main deck that didn't get reprinted in the Megatins, but hey ho. But you only need 1 copy. If it's normal or special summoned, you can mill 1 Agnista monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if it goes to the graveyard as a material for a synchro summon of a Cyberse monster, we're only playing Cyberse synchros, you can target 1 monster in the graveyard that was used for that synchro summon, accept itself, and special summon it. 1 Doshin. This is again another just free extender, can special summon itself from your hand if you control an Attignista monster. 1 Gachiri Attignista. This allows us to, gives us a little bit of protection, and also can special summon itself from the hand by negating a Cyberse effect monster's effects. Most of our Agnistas have effects on summon, so you'll have already used them, or in the graveyard, so it doesn't matter. So that's essentially a free special summon. And you can also send it to the graveyard from the field and make something unaffected by opponent's card effects, which will usually be something like your Arrival. 1 copy of Danmari. Danmari can special summon itself from your hand to negate an attack, and then whilst you control Arrival Cyberse Agnista, you can banish it from the graveyard and then target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and negate its effect. So this is your monster negation. For our hand traps, we play 3 Effect Veiler. You know what Effect Veiler does? Really hurts Tri-Brigade, and is very useful against a lot of other matchups, except perhaps Virtual World. We then play 3 copies of Artifact Lancia. Now, I know this conflicts with Danmari, however, this is huge blowout against something like Tri-Brigade. It's also incredible against people who try hit you with Crossout Designator and so on, and we really don't do that much banishing in this deck. And then finally for our hand traps, we have 2 Ghost Spells, which of course stops graveyard type effects. So anything that's special summoning from the graveyard, banishing from the graveyard, or adding a card from the graveyard back to the hand, deck, or extra. So, for our spell cards, we have 3 Idle Reborn. This is a quick play monster reborn. Locks you into attacks except Cyberse monsters, but we don't care about that because our entire deck is Cyberse. And then we can also recycle some idle spell traps as well, if we absolutely have to. 3 copies of AI Meet You. This is how we search for a Chi-Chi. And the only reason we're playing Phoenix in our extra deck. So we reveal one Cyberse monster with 2/300 attack in hand or extra, and then we search one with the same attribute. And then if we don't special summon the revealed monster or the monster with the same name, we take 2,300 damage. And then it will lock you into Cyberse monster effects. Again, this is our main searcher. It's how we start our combos. By getting the piece we need. 3 copies of Ignista AI Land. This card is ridiculous. It essentially says special summon every single card from your hand. If you have no monsters in your main monster zone, special summon 1 level 4 or lower at Ignista monster from your hand, but for the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters with the same attribute by the effect of Ignista AI Land, and then it locks you into Cyberse monsters. If it's in your graveyard, banish 1 Ignista monster to set this card. So this is how we extend, essentially. It allows us to just run through our hand, linking and playing everything off into our extra deck, and moving stuff into the extra monster zone to special summon more and more monsters, and then we can bring them all back with Dark Templar, and then go into Arrival. Three copies of Cynet Mining, one of the more expensive components of the deck. It's the best generic Cyberse searcher. Entire deck is Cyberse. 1 AI Contact. It's really easy to end up with multiple copies of Ignista AI Land because Dark Infant exists. This card is searchable at 1, and obviously we have so many other ways of searching Ignista AI Land as well. So I felt, why don't we try having a draw 3 in the deck as well? We won't see it every game, but I think it's worth experimenting, and the upside is greater than the downside. 2 copies of Twin Twisters, because back row sucks, and getting Imperial Ordered also sucks. So this is our out to Imperial Order. 1 Called by the Grave, because getting Ash Blossomed also sucks, and then that can completely stop if you have if you haven't drawn enough at Ignistas, so you can't get to your Chi-Chi or something, or your Chi-Chi is the only at Ignista you have access to, then we really need to be able to stop the Ash. Then finally in the main deck, we can actually run 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence because it's finally cheap enough. Please don't pay more than the price of the Cyberduck structure deck for these cards. There are plenty of Cyberduck structure decks out there. If you have to buy the full deck to get your copies of Infip, please do that. And then look at my Cyberduck deck as well on the channel. So, on to the extra deck. We have 1 copy of the Arrival Cyberse at Ignista. This is our big towers, if you played Klee format. 3 monsters with different attributes. You can only control 1. The attack of this card becomes 1,000 times the number of link materials used. Once per turn, you can target 1 monster on the field, destroy it, and spawn 1 at Ignista token with attack and defense 0, and it's unaffected by other cards' effects. So it gets absolutely huge. We can easily make this at 5,000 or 6,000, and it's immune to absolutely everything and is free destruction. And more board presence. 1 Dark Templar. This is 3 monsters with different names, and then if a monster is special summoned to a zone it points to, you special summon as many level 4 or lower at Ignista monsters from your graveyard to zones this card points to, but negates their effects. The battle effect is less relevant because we're normally trying to go first with this to put Arrival on board, and we're not usually attacking with Dark Templar. But this is how we put so many monsters on the board to bring them all back with Dark Templar and make a massive Arrival. 1 Fire Phoenix. This is in here entirely to be revealed off AI Meet You. That's all this is for. 2 copies of Dark Infant. This card is the card that made the deck really go from rogue to pretty much meta. If it's link summoned, you can add Ignista AI Land. That's why it's so easy to get multiple copies of AI Land, because of course we're running 3 and we have Terraforming in the extra deck. And then when a Cyberse monster with 2/3 original attack, activates its effect. You can move this card to any main monster zone that it points to and then change its attribute. So you can even make this divine as well, which again, it helps in adding another attribute onto Arrival. 1 linkuriboh, because negating traps is fun, especially when you're going, when you've got to go either second, and you can make this as an insurance against something like a revolt, or at least force the revolt, or force an imperm or something else, and then if it's in the graveyard, you can also tribute an Accesscode monster and summon this card as a quick effect, which again gives you another trap negate. 1 Wind Pegasus. Wind Pegasus gets us to destroy back row as the number of Accesscode monsters you control, and then if another card is destroyed by battle or card effect while it's in the graveyard, banish this card, target a card your opponent controls, and shuffle it into the deck. So, very nice removal for both back and front row. 1 Light Dragon. Light Dragon gives us some protection with a sort of Dingirsu type effect. And then, if a monster would be, you can detach a material from it, destroy face-up monsters your opponent controls, up to the number of Accesscode you control, so it's non-targeting, widespread destruction, so this card is really strong going second. And if a Cyberse monster inflicts battle damage, you can special summon a Link monster from your graveyard. 1 Transcode Talker. Transcode Talker, if you've played Salad, you know how strong this card is. It lets you bring back another Link 3 or lower Cyberse monster from the graveyard and summon it to a zone it points to. Monsters it points to, if it's co-linked, monsters gain 500 attack. And obviously in conjunction with Update Jammer, you can attack twice with it very easily. Speaking of, here's Update Jammer. Update Jammer allows you to negate some effects on the field if monsters battle, and if it's used as link material, that link monster can make a second attack. 1 Cyberse Wicked. This card can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. It's got 2 downward pointing arrows. Cyberse monsters it points to can't be destroyed by card effects, and then if a monster special summoned to a zone this card points to while you control this monster, banish 1 Cyberse monster from your graveyard, add 1 Cyberse tuner from your deck to your hand. So this is how you search Boruru really easily. 2 copies of Splash Mage as a fantastic generic Cyberse extender. Again, just getting through any Cyberse monsters that are in your graveyard. It brings back Dark Infant, it brings back anything else you could need in the deck. Again, locks you into Cyberse, but you do not care. 1 Cyberse Quantum Dragon. While you control a Link monster, monsters your opponent controls cannot target monsters you control for attacks, except this one, and cannot target monsters you control with card effects, except this one. This helps protect things like your Arrival, or if you can't make a big Arrival. And once per turn, at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, return that monster to the hand, and this card can make a second attack in a row. So again, this gives you some more non-targeting removal, and helps you push through damage for OTKs. And then finally, we have 1 copy of Link Spider as a way of turning an Nibiru token into a Cyberse monster, so we can use it for our plays. And that's the main reason we're playing it. So, I hope you enjoyed that deck profile. It's a much cheaper deck than it was, and it plays very differently to a lot of other combo decks. Because your combo focuses on getting 1 big, unbeatable boss monster onto the field, rather than making a field with infinite negates or infinite banishes or what have you. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you again soon with a Halloween special episode. Bye for now.